Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the RDX Sports Podcast. I'm Simon Head, and as it is a gap week this week on Planet MMA, we need to start looking for our mixed martial arts fix a little bit beyond the world of the UFC and the PFL and people like this. Thankfully, my good friend John Morgan has just the antidote for us this weekend. CFFC 145 comes to us live on Fight Pass from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City this weekend. And I thought we'd get the man on himself to talk us through it and to talk about a fair amount of change in his own career over the last 12 months or so. First off, John, how's it going?
It's good, man. It's busy. Let me give a shout out to your production values there, by the way. Stepping your game up. I like to see that. But it's good, man. As you said, laying out the transitions and the changes. It's been different, but it's been a blast, man. It's been an invigorating time, to kind of pivot, but stay within obviously the sport and industry that I love so much.
You've been calling fights for a long time, right? Do you remember the first time you actually called a fight? Was it a Tough Enough fight, or was it somewhere else? Or
yeah, I'm pretty sure it would have been a Tough Enough fight when I moved out here in Las Vegas in 2008. So yeah, it's been like 17 years now of calling fights. That's crazy.
So when you started doing that, that was kind of like a side hustle, right? A bit of a side gig, something to do alongside the day job as such. And now here you are, you're solely with CFFC. You were calling fights for them already, but that's grown massively now. And now you've gone from commentary being your side gig. Well, I suppose it kind of is still a side gig now because you have a lot more on your plate. Talk to me about this career transition you've made, because I've kind of been I've kind of half been there seeing it happen in real time, but you've gone from being like the main guy at a UFC press conference, the man with the first question. You're now not so much because you're now off doing other stuff. So talk to us about this progression and the role you've got going on now.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. Like you said, started calling fights as a side gig, really enjoyed it, loved it. Did a ton of it for Tough Enough over the years. Titan FC back in the day was a good one. And eventually got to a point where, our old bosses at Gannett and USA Today asked me to stop doing it. And, I thought it was maybe potentially a conflict of interest as a journalist. And, I didn't necessarily agree, but obviously they were paying my checks at the time, so I stopped doing it. But a couple years later down the line, I had an opportunity to go start working for CFFC. I got an opportunity to do it. And it had just so happened that kind of our leadership at Gannett and USA Today had taken a change. And I wondered if some of the new people in charge saw the same conflict of interest, that the previous regime did, or if they thought it was okay. And so I actually asked them, hey, I'd really like to start calling fights because I loved it, man. When I was getting to do it, I loved it, right? Because you know how passionate I am about the sport, and I love being able to help tell the stories of the fight, of the fighters, and that sort of thing. And that's just another way to do it, right? So, it was never really about the money of having the side gig. It was just fun to do. And so I had put that into the feelers into place of being able to do it, and they went through a full review of it, went before an ethics committee, all this stuff, and they said, yeah, you know what, you actually can do it. And I'm telling you, man, the timing, the good fortune was crazy, because I did that without even having anything on the table. And then a couple weeks after I got the approval, I got approached to start working for CFFC, and I was like, man, look at the blessings on that timing, man. That just worked out the way it was supposed to. So started calling fights for them. And I guess that was about 2019 or so. And, obviously you've seen it, working with CM Punk and, Rob Haydack, the boss over there, Brad Bolden. Right away, it felt right, man. It felt like this is good, man. I like this team. I really, really like working with this crew. Unfortunately, they liked having me around. And so, started work with them. And suddenly I started thinking, things were changing at MMA Junkie. Things were changing over at Gannett and that sort of thing. And I was like, there's possibly another career path to look at this. And so, just started taking on as much responsibility as I could around CFFC. Anytime it was like, hey, we need somebody that can, write press releases for us. Like, all right, no problem. I can do that. Well, we need some people. We've thought about this. We need to do some more content on the website. I can do that, and just anything I could do. I said, hey, let me do it. And finally it came to a point where they were just like, man, we'd love to have you here full time. And started working with Rob Haydack on that and kind of what it would look like. And, it was funny because he was kind of like, I don't really know what job title to give you. He was like, I was kind of thinking like general manager, because you're really going to be involved in a little bit of everything. And I was like, man, you know what, honestly, it's kind of a full circle thing. I love it, because I was a general manager in the restaurant business when I walked away from that to start taking this dive into mixed martial arts. So what a time to come back and be a general manager again. So that's been kind of the career path. And yeah, it's why you don't see me around on the media days and the press conferences quite as much these days.
What's been the biggest change having moved, sort of basically crossed the divide, right? You've jumped the fence, so to speak, from being from the media side to the promotion side.
Man, just learning all the business side of things too. The production side is a big part of it, and the business side of it, and really getting down to, the dollars and cents of how you make everything work, and just seeing, the massive amount of costs are involved. Anybody that's been a promoter in this space will tell you it is not cheap to put on an event, and you certainly know at CFFC, man, we try to put on high level, top level, both from a live entertainment perspective and from a broadcast perspective as well. And it's not cheap to do that, man. There's a lot of big costs associated with it. So just, learning that side of it it's been fun. It's been it's bringing me back to, when I was in the restaurant business and I was a general manager and, going through the P&Ls and going through your invoices and, taking bids for services and managing personnel and all that stuff. So there's so many things about it. It's just that now it's almost like Fight Night now used to be the center of everything, and now Fight Night is almost just like the culmination of all the work that's already been there. That's almost like, I don't want to say like that's the part where you let out the gas, because you don't, but that's like the fun part. Like just calling fights now, that's like the most fun. The rest of it, there's so much business and work that leads up to it. And so that's been a real big change. It's just how much, the workload has changed to a different aspect of it.
And what's it like calling fights with CM Punk? How's this relationship built over I suppose it's been a couple of years or so now, right? And like we've known each other for a little while. You weren't a pro wrestling guy, right?
No.
And
no.
You're more of a pro wrestling guy now. I guess you kind of can't not be when you're spending time with someone like Punk, who is he's a big personality, but he's you've got that great dynamic going on in the commentary box, but he's he understands what it is to kind of sell yourself as an individual athlete. And I think that's a useful asset for CFFC to have as well, to sort of encourage the fighters to sort of make the use of their mic time, right?
100%. He's it's funny because when we first got paired up to work together, I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried because you're exactly right. Like, I don't know much about pro wrestling at all. I am learning more. I'm getting more, but at the time I knew nothing. I always remember that when the UFC signed CM Punk, I remember I was working on that story for MMA Junkie, and I was just like having to like read off Wikipedia and Google for like facts of CM Punk. I'm like, I don't know what to fill out this story with. Like, I know who he is, kind of. I don't know anything about him. So, I didn't know. And obviously, I covered his UFC career, and he was always very polite and professional. And so, I mean, I had that rapport with him, but that's just a reporter athlete kind of relationship or what have you. So I didn't know much about pro wrestling. Obviously he is straight edge and I am not. It's like we didn't have that in common. It's not like we're gonna go have a couple cocktails after the show and kind of bond and get together. So I was like, man, I don't know if this is gonna work or not. But man, for whatever reason, like it did. It just worked right away. And he is such a professional, and he's so passionate about the sport, man. Like, I mean, obviously, he's not working for CFFC to pay his bills. You know what I mean? He's doing it because he loves it. He's absolutely passionate about it. And even now, as his WWE schedule has gotten busier and busier and busier, like he always lets us know, like, if I can get away, I'm going to be there. If I don't have to wrestle, if I don't have to be an appearance, like, I'm going to come call the fights. Like, please keep that seat open for me. And of course, we let him know, man, that seat's always yours. But man, it's been great. And you're right, man. My love for professional wrestling has started to change. I think part of it for me was rooted in the fact that, like, I got into mixed martial arts so early that it was still that time where you would talk to people and they'd be like, I've seen that. Is that real? Like, is that, and you're trying to explain to people, like, no, these are actual real fights. And so for years, I kind of thought it was important that, hey, man, we got to keep these things as far apart as possible because we need to make sure people understand that these fights are absolutely real. But I just think we're there now. Like, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't know that these are real fights. And so now, if you can take that in and take professional wrestling, they're so good at it. And like you said, Punk is great. Even just things like when I see him do post-fight interviews and listening to the crowd, he's doing the interview, but if he hears a cheering or a section or somebody scream the name, he's so good about stopping and acknowledging, you know what I mean? Yeah, right. Where everybody else is just trying to, oh gosh, I got to get through these questions and I got to get it. So he's so great at that. I absolutely love working with CM Punk. I cannot tell you what a great guy he is behind the scenes, and he's become a good friend. And I absolutely love working with him any chance we get. And I tell you what, it was funny. Before he went back to the WWE, when he was doing his AEW run, he actually won the title here in Las Vegas. And so I've never been more invested in a wrestling match in my life than watching him. And my wife and son were with me. It was such a blast just to see your buddy up in there doing it. It's great. And obviously he's the best ever, man. So it's a blast working with him.
Do you know how it even started in the first place? Was he already tied to the promotion when you joined, or did he come after? How did CM Punk become a co-commentator on CFFC in the first place?
I believe that it was connected through Dave Schaller, our old friend at UFC PR. He actually was working with CFFC for a little bit as well before he went on to his current role, in the big sports. And so I believe so you're right. Punk was there before I got there. He was there a few shows before I was. And I believe it was Dave Schaller that made that introduction.
Gotcha. It's a fascinating dynamic, but it's one that works, right? And you've had Michelle Waterson's been on the call as well, and you've had Dean Thomas as well. I mean, the one thing you guys have been really blessed with is you've always had a strong commentary team. Andre Petrosky's done a good job when he stepped in as well. You've always had a really strong second or even third person alongside you when you've been commentating to add that color.
Blessed to do that. Again, Rob Haydak, man, he wants to hold it to the highest level. And so anytime we don't have Punk, we talk about who's out there and who we might be able to bring in. We recently had Michael Chiesa for the first time on our grappling event. He'll be back as well. Yeah. He was fantastic. I've wanted to work with him for a long time. Him and I worked together one time in Italy, of all random places. I mean, it's just crazy. But exactly right, man. That was a legendary man. Yeah. So yeah, blessed to that. Michelle Waterson's done a great job. Dean Thomas is fantastic. So yeah, really, really exciting and it's great. Again, and Rob, the visionary behind everything, he's just like, let's get the best possible team we can. We want the product to be as good as it possibly can. We want it to be as professional, as knowledgeable, as relatable as possible. And always when we bring those folks in too, letting them know too that, hey, our vibe, by the way, is we want this thing to be a buttoned up professional product, but we also want to have a little fun too, right? Like, let's not take ourselves way too seriously. Let's be some fans watching some fights. Because I can tell you, out of every one of those names that I just mentioned, myself included, Punk, all the rest of them, all of us are fans at heart, right? Like, all of us do this because we love it. You know what I mean? So, like, let that shine through and just enjoy yourself.
I mean, and that kind of leads me on nicely. We've got this event coming up this weekend, but before we sort of go into the nuts and bolts of that actual fight card, let's just talk a little bit about the position of CFFC in the whole ecosystem of MMA, right? Over on my side of the pond, we have Cage Warriors, which is similarly positioned, right? So they're both on the UFC Fight Pass platform. They're both renowned for being a career launch pad for fighters who want to make that next step. It's kind of like a proving school, right? You've got to go in there, you do the business on the regional scene, and then you sort of earn your stripes. You get spotted by the matchmakers, and eventually you get that crack at the big time. But it's not just that as well. It's also a great place for fans to watch fights, right? Because the UFC is a massive global product. Tickets go like this as soon as they go on sale. And also they're not cheap, right? So there are other ways to watch good quality MMA and have a cracking night out. And CFFC is certainly an example of that. Talk to us about the vibe of how you pit, the vibe of the shows themselves, but also how you pitch it within that wider ecosystem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think you laid it out exactly right. I mean, number one, as far as, the athlete perspective, look, man, we're just trying to give you the best showcase that we possibly can. We want to get you in there, put you on a great stage. As you said, the live event is fantastic. If you've ever been to a CFFC event, it is phenomenal, man. I mean, we do a great job. Again, of course, I'm going to be biased, but I mean, I really am proud of the team and everybody that put in both the live entertainment perspective and the broadcast perspective, because you're simultaneously doing two things, right? You want to please the audience that's in the house and pay their hard-earned money to come out and, watch some great fights, but you want to, pay off the people that are sitting at home watching on UFC Fight Pass as well. So you got to do both those. And I think we do a great job of it. But you're right, from the athlete perspective and the way we serve it to them. It's like, listen, we want to give you an opportunity to come out here and shine. You know what I mean? We want you. There's nothing that makes us more proud than an Eric Nolan stepping up on short notice and going out there and putting on a hell of a fight against an absolute monster up a weight class, knowing that he's been through some stiff tests, right? Knowing that he took some tough fights at CFFC. Like, we make it clear, like, listen, we got to give you some tough matches, but I promise you that's in your best interest in the long run. But we love to see that kind of stuff. There's nothing that makes us prouder than that. And then you've got guys, same thing like Kyle Dawkins, who made his way up to the big show and then came back and made his way back there again and had that amazing performance in Shanghai. So absolutely, we understand what our role is. Our role is, to help feed athletes to the UFC or other big promotions. I mean, you're not bound to go to the UFC. Maybe you can get some other offers elsewhere, but obviously, keeping it in the UFC family is nice. Just make your way right up the path in UFC Fight Pass and then find yourself in the big show. I can't tell you how happy that makes me. So that's all we want to do is just give these athletes a chance to shine, give them some tape they can show that they can be proud of, because hopefully the commentary made the moment feel nice. Hopefully that high-level presentation, made it look good on social media and all those things and got people's attention. And look, I'll be honest with you. We've got relationships with the UFC matchmakers too. I mean, we're putting bugs in their ears sometimes too. Like, hey, make sure you're taking a look at our champ right now at 185 pounds, or make sure you look at, we'll put words out there too. So even though it's not, we're not their managers or anything like that, we champion for these guys as well, because we want to see them make it to the next level.
Yeah, you mentioned there, you're not the managers of these fighters, obviously, but you are people that can help people along the way, right? And obviously you're providing the platform, but there's also, you've got the alumni of all the past champions and people who've come through the system, and obviously you've got the people who work for the promotion as well. If you're a young prospect coming into the promotion, maybe you're 1-0 as a pro, 2-0 as a pro, and things are going quite well for you, right? You might even have a couple of highlight reel victories under your belt already. How important is it for these fighters to just not rush to get to, because the Contender Series now gives you that almost in between step between what you guys are doing at CFFC and the UFC. There is the opportunity to have that sort of half step where you get invited to the Contender Series first. Then if you get a good win there, then you're in the UFC. But even then, it's not just about getting there. And I think this has almost become like a mantra for you guys, right? It's not about getting there. It's about staying there once you've got there, right?
It really has, man. And I'll even take off the CFFC hat at this point and just say, as a guy that has literally spent the last 25 years immersed in this sport, professionally, that's been there since the very beginning, I just see it over and over and over, right? Like, I get it. As an amateur, man, you want to turn pro as fast as you can, right? Because obviously you can't get paid. You want to start collecting those paychecks. And I get that. And I totally sympathize with that. But I would tell you, don't rush that stage. Get as many amateur fights. If you can get 8 to 10 amateur fights, I think that's a fantastic amount of experience. Learn those lessons, right? Because then when you can reset the record, you can turn pro. And listen, there will be exceptions to this from time. Maybe somebody that was so high level in another combat sport or whatever that they can't even get fights as an amateur or whatever. But the more experience you can get, the better. And then same thing at the professional. And the other thing too is not just taking fights, but man, if you can, and sometimes it's tough, especially at the amateur level, because there might not be tape out there of your opponents, but like, if you can fight a southpaw, if you can fight a taller opponent, if you can fight a shorter opponent, if you can fight, fight in somebody else's backyard, fight, those kind of things. Anything, not just experience, but experience with a purpose. And then, yes, go to professional level. And you're right. Contender Series is obviously spectacular, but it does give a lot of people a reason to think, hey, man, if I could just get to 5-0, 6-0, I'm going to get on Contender Series and I'm going to be on the UFC. And sometimes that will happen. But the more seasoning that you can get, the better that you can be prepared, because exactly what you said, it has become a mantra for us. We don't want our athletes to just get there. We want them to stay there. Just getting to the UFC, having a 4-fight contract, going 1-3, and then releasing you, then what? You know what I mean? Like that's not a great option. Like, you want to make sure that you have tested yourself, you have proven yourself, and you are truly ready at a UFC level. So, always encourage people to get that experience, whether it's under the CFFC banner or somewhere else. I just encourage them to get that experience if they can, because it will be beneficial to them long term. I know you're in a rush. I know you want to get to that big paycheck as fast as possible. But again, you want to stay there and keep collecting those checks once you get there.
Yeah, it seems even more important now, where the turnover of fighters, or the ability, at least from the outside looking in, the ability to get towards a UFC contract it's never seemed more open, right? Whereas before, you had to just have an undeniable case that you've built elsewhere. You get the call and you get invited to join the UFC, and then you go from there. Whereas now there are pathways in, right? Obviously, you've got the promotions that are tied to the UFC anyway, but you've got the Contender Series, you've got Road to UFC. The ways to actually get your foot in the door, there are more options there, but it also means that the scope for turnover of those fighters is a lot higher. And it means that if you have 2 fights in the UFC, don't deliver, you have a bad first performance, you miss weight badly second time, you might not get a third go, So it's because you're very easily replaced at that level. So it's even more important that you're good enough to not just get there, but stay there, right? And, the example I always give when I talk about this is from the UK, Jimmy Manuwa was invited, I think, 2 or 3 times before he eventually signed for the UFC and made it to being on the verge of a championship fight at light heavyweight. Paddy Pimblett, look what he's doing right now. I think he turned the UFC down twice before he eventually joined. Yep. So, and if he'd have joined the first time he was asked, there's a fair bet he might not be there now, but he joined at the right time. And now look at him, he's one of the biggest stars in the UFC. So the timing is important.
It's tough, man. And I get it. Like I said, I'm so sympathetic. Like, can you imagine if it's like, well, Simon, I've got this opportunity for you and we're going to triple your pay and the opportunity for you to be like, man, I appreciate that, but I got to be honest with you, I'm not quite ready for that position just yet. It's hard, right? I mean, in any walk of life, most people are just going to be like, hell yeah, give me that money and I'll fake it till I make it, right? But man, the UFC is not a place you can fake it till you make it, man. You got to be there and you got to have those skills or they will get exposed very quickly. So I get it, man. I would if somebody gets a UFC offer, I say when the phone rings, answer it. And you know that. I've talked about that in all levels of professionalism as well. The phone rings, you answer it. But, so it's hard to say and then turn the matchmakers down. You know what I mean? Like, no, I get it. But just don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush. Continue to continue to gain experience as much as you can.
100%. And, you've got a bunch of fighters on this card this weekend who are looking to get to that point in their career, right? And we've got some towards the top of the card who've built a good amount of experience. You've got some a bit further down the card who are making those first steps as a professional mixed martial artist, but are already showing lots of promise as well. But this is a good fight card you've got coming up in Atlantic City. You've got 2 talented lightweights at the top of the card, Richie Lewis and Benny Orozco. Talk to me about this main event first off, and then we can pick out a few other highlights further down the card, but should be a fun one.
Should be a really fun main event. It's kind of interesting, right? Because this wasn't our original main event. It was Kyle Dawkess was in the original main event, but he got the call to the UFC, and obviously, man, you get the call. We're never holding you back, of course, man. I've seen Rob, release headliners on the week of Fight Week because they got called up. It's like, dude, that's what you're here for. But it kind of worked out pretty well, right? Because Richie Lewis is this New Jersey hometown guy, standout wrestler. He was an under-23 world champion. He wrestled at Rutgers. I mean, he's a Jersey guy through and through, but his professional fighting career has taken him elsewhere. And this is his first time that he gets to fight in New Jersey, in his home state. He's already talked about it. He's like, man, you guys aren't going to believe the amount of fans that I have showing up that are going to be there for me. So now not only does he get that opportunity, but he gets to do it in the main event, right? So it's almost, again, like a thing that was meant to be. But then you got Benny Orozco, who's coming from California, has progressed his career very quickly. You take a look at how fast he ripped through his amateur fights and how busy he's staying on the professional stage, and a real talented submission artist as well. And Benny's just as thrilled to be in the main event here. He's like, hey, I get to go play spoiler. I get to be on the road in this dude's backyard, and I get the spotlight. I feel like this is the opportunity that I needed to really break through. Both these gentlemen believe, hey, our destiny is in the UFC. Richie kind of feels like I've been building to this moment, and Benny kind of feels like, dude, this is the moment I get to come in there and steal all that shine in the headliner. So very, very intriguing matchup in what ended up being our main event. Kept it at 3 rounds. It's not, we didn't throw a title in there for no reason. There's enough intrigue in it already, and so I think it's going to be a really fun headliner. And I think the atmosphere should be pretty spectacular because there are going to be a lot of Richie Lewis fans in there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always like about the CFFC cards, whether it's in Philly or whether it's in New Jersey, those crowds are pretty raucous, right? And especially when you got some local guys on the card, and they're sort, especially if you've got 2-3 of them on the card, it sort of builds that momentum as well. And it's always very, very lively by the time you get to the big ones at the top.
100%. And I'm telling you right now, the Hard Rock Atlantic City is a phenomenal property. Like, we do a lot of events there, and I love it every time I get there, man. Just the hotel itself, like the rooms are fantastic, but then just the property and the energy that's in there. And it's pretty interesting because the arena that we actually use, Edis Arena, that is the old Taj Mahal, the Trump Taj Mahal. So we're actually in the venue that held the first Zuffa era UFC events, which I always think is pretty cool. There's a little bit of history in that venue as well. It's been seeing high-level MMA for a while. But, yeah, the electricity in that building, Hard Rock, man, it's it's fantastic, man. It's a great place, and it's Labor Day weekend. It's kind of like the end of summer on the Atlantic City Boardwalk, so should be a great weekend. I think we're weather permitting, which it looks like it's going to hold up. We're going to have ceremonial weigh-ins out on the boardwalk on Friday night, so attract a little crowd, and it'll look pretty cool. So yeah, it should be a good one this weekend.
Talk to me about Busman Zumagul, right? This is a guy who, full disclosure, I also write for the UFC. We've been in conversations about this young man. He's going to be featured on the UFC.com website as one of the fighters to watch on UFC Fight Pass, and for good reason, right? You don't get many 6'4" welterweights in mixed martial arts. How on earth do you find opponents for this man? Because he's only had 3 professional fights, and he's doing incredible things. And he's a nightmare if you're a prospect trying to come up at 170 pounds. Why would you sign to fight this man?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Sermon is so skilled. I mean, 3 fights, 3 first-round finishes, and as you said, the size stands out right away. And just 21 years old. I mean, the guy has every mark of a top prospect. But you find guys that are willing to take that challenge, and Joshua Sierra is that guy. He's an MMA Masters product. He actually had his professional debut with us. Came up short after a pretty standout amateur career. Came up short in his professional debut, went away, got 2 first-round knockouts of his own, right? So this is definitely one of those, like, don't blink type things. And I think if you're Sierra or you're anybody else with Zumagul right now, I think you got to say to yourself, look, this dude has looked dangerous, and he is, but we haven't seen him really, taking the distance. How, does the power, does the speed, does the technique, does it hold up over time? Does he start losing focus because he thinks this sport is so easy that I'm just going to tear through everybody? So you got to take shots like this, you know what I mean? You got to take opportunities, and Josh Sierra is willing to step up and do it. So yeah, big fight, man. There's a lot of hype around Zumagul for sure. If he's victorious here, we do have a vacant welterweight title with Eric Nolan stepping up to the UFC. So maybe a title shot's not too far in his future. Pretty cool to see that he'll be featured on UFC.com as well, and that they're taking some more interest in some of the athletes at this level, and trying to kind of start the grassroots focus on athletes like this.
From Kyrgyzstan to Philadelphia, that's an interesting journey. And now here he is fighting in a cage for a living, but he's looked super impressive so far.
I tell you what, it's funny, man. Our small circle in the world, Nolan King, obviously, a former colleague of both of ours, does some work with Tapology as well. And for the longest time, Busman's Tapology page had like an American flag and had him listed as Philadelphia. And I'm like, Nolan, help me out here, brother. I'm like, look, the man's carrying the flag in the end of the cage every time. Can we get this switched up? Like, he's in Philly now, but give this man some credit for his roots. Let his countrymen have some pride when they take a look at that Tapology page.
Oh man, no, I'm looking forward to seeing him fight. I thought the last fight he had on paper looked like it was going to be a reasonable step up in class for him. I think it lasted 40 seconds before he'd finished the guy with a vicious knee up the middle. So, but yeah, definitely one to watch. But there's 1 or 2 others on the card, John. Who else can you highlight for the people watching, people that might be worth keeping an eye on, whether it be this weekend or certainly moving forward in their career?
I'll tell you an interesting one that is Ben Coyle. So Ben Coyle right now in the flyweight division, he's 5-1 in his last 6. Right, he started out his career 1-3. He's got a really intriguing story. He started out his career 1-3, so he's in a hole, man. After an amazing amateur career, he's 1-3. He looks terrible, and just makes some life changes, makes some training changes, all those things. He's 5-1 his last 6. All 5 of them are finishes. The guy's never been to a decision ever in his career. But it's funny, and I didn't even know this. He was actually doing an interview with Jake Noacker and was like, hey, I just want to, while we're talking, he's like, I want to correct something. I'm not 5-1 in my last 6. He's like, if you look at my record, I have a DQ loss to an illegal knee to the head of a grounded opponent. And he's like, that should be a KO win for me. I was like, if you go frame by frame. So anyway, turns out he's got the footage on Instagram. I went and looked at it, and I don't think he should get the KO win because he did kind of fake the opponent, and the opponent shot, and the knees were on the ground, but he knocked him out. I think it should have been a no contest because it was kind of a bang-bang kind of situation. Yeah. It was only 14 seconds. So bottom line is, I mean, you could look at it as he's 6-0 in his last 6 with 6 finishes. So this dude is on a tear right now. He's facing Oscar Gerardo. It should be a fun fight, but we've got a pretty talented flyweight champion, Bilal Hassan, right now that I'm pretty surprised hasn't gotten the UFC a call already. Yeah. And Ben Coyle is saying, give me that dude. I don't care. I want anybody. I'll beat him. So that's a fun one that I didn't even know that full backstory until probably last week. So I think that one's interesting. But some other ones, Carly Jo Thomas against Annabelle Kelly. Carly Jo Thomas, this is a strawweight fight. She had an incredible professional debut, man. I mean, everybody was buzzing after this 2.5-minute performance that she had. And then we brought her back in a couple months, and she's facing a 3-0 Annabelle Kelly, who's stepping into the CFFC cage for the first time. So, amazing debut. Can you follow it up? And the fact that she was willing to take on a 3-0 fighter in that follow-up, I thought was pretty intriguing as well. So great stuff there. And honestly, man, this card is stacked. Even on the prelims, Dean Thomas is going to be on the mic with me. I was just talking to Dean Thomas about it. Our featured prelim, Jeremiah Delgado. This will be on onlyfans.com/CFFC MMA. We'll also put it up on YouTube after, as we started to put our prelims after the fact. But if you want to watch them live, onlyfans.com/CFFC MMA. But Jeremiah Delgado is this 20-year-old, super prospect. Everybody in the gym says, bro, this kid is the future. At 20 years old, he's so incredibly talented. He's making his pro debut. He was 4-0 as an amateur, all finishes. He's making his pro debut against Tyler Berger, who 1-0 early in his career. You just look at him and you go, okay, all right. He's the real Oregon gangster is his nickname, which is great. He's got some personality. But you do some research into it. He's a 3-time All-American at Nebraska. So, I mean, some legitimate wrestling skills that he's building from. So, I mean, a great fight there. So, just some fun ones. Nick Galanti versus Ty Gwerder is our co-main event. That could have some title implications at 185. So, I'm telling you, this card on paper looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And in Atlantic City on a Saturday night, it's going to be a fun night.
That's going to be Saturday on UFC Fight Pass. I think it starts... I think it's 2 p.m. Is it 2 p.m.? Sorry, 2 a.m. start for us in the UK. So what's that? Is that 7 a.m. start where you are on the East Coast?
So our prelims 6 p.m. Eastern, main card 8 p.m. Eastern. In fact, I think actually Fight Pass has the wrong time listed on it right now because I actually saw that earlier. It's actually 1 hour difference. Yeah. So I give you a break for getting it wrrong because they had it wrong on Fight Pass. We got to get that corrected. But yeah, 6 p.m. for the prelims, 8 p.m. Eastern for the main card.
Gotcha. That is absolutely well worth picking up on and following on Saturday night. And these shows are a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, with a couple of mates talking on a podcast, but watching these, there's so much MMA you can watch. You can't watch everything. So you pick the stuff that you enjoy watching, and CFFC is always an absolute blast. It does feel like a group of mates just sitting around watching fights together. And that's the vibe you want on a Saturday night, right? Especially if you're staying 100%. Up in the middle of the night like I am. So, but it's great. But it isn't just MMA though at CFFC, right? You're building other streams as well. You've got the collegiate wrestling stuff, and you've got Muay Thai coming down the line as well. Talk to us a bit about building those two pillars as well.
We do. We've got grappling as well. We used to be Fury Professional Grappling. We actually recently rebranded to CFFC BJJ. And you're right. We've got another one of those events coming up on September. Actually, just had a call earlier today with the UFC BJJ team, talking about their rule set and their operations and that thing, and discussing ideas with them of how we could kind of mold our organization to kind of mirror some of what they're doing with UFC BJJ. So we've got that coming up. We've actually got a full next generation series as well, which is great. So it's basically, our amateur product, but we're doing full cards of it as well in New Jersey. So we're doing those local now. And as you said, CFFC Match Day, the college wrestling, man. The college wrestling has been a blast, man. I honestly, Rob Haydak, former collegiate wrestler, he's passionate about the sport. And, obviously with MMA, man, I'd been around it a little bit, but not fully invested in it. And it's fun, man. It is really a great sport. If you can catch some of the replays of our old events before the next season starts, check that out on UFC Fight Pass. They're a lot of fun. We ended up with a ton of national champions that actually competed on UFC Fight Pass last year. So that was an honor to do that. And then, CFFC Muay Thai as well. On hold for the remainder of the year. I think we're going to do some 2026 dates, but we're developing that as well. Kind of tweaking a little bit with the rule sets and what we can do out there. Obviously, the rule sets, man, for the longest time, the athletic commissions were kind of against adopting any new rule sets, but that's kind of changed in recent years. And so I think we're kind of looking at some ways we can play with some of the existing rules and make that a fun product as well. So yeah, man, we're doing a little bit of all. We're just combat sports fans, MMA at the core, but man, there's so many other fun combat sports that we can take part in as well. And again, just kind of hopefully apply our passion and our knowledge and our commitment to a great show to make it fun. Because listen, man, you said it. Like, if you're, and again, I want to say this, not just, of course, I'm going to be biased towards CFFC, but I would say anywhere, dude, if there's a local promotion in your area, go check it out, man. Like it's fun. It's a fun time. You're gonna sit way closer than you ever would at a UFC event, and it's just UFC tickets are expensive, man. Like I mean, look, everything's expensive right now. It feels like the prices of everything right now. I think it's not just the UFC, so I don't want to make it seem like, oh, they're just ridiculous with their pricing. But it's just, I mean, it's supply and demand, right? It's expensive to go to a UFC event, and if you can't necessarily afford those tickets, I get it. Go check out your local show, man, and you never know who you're going to see, man. And I love that stuff, identifying some talent early and seeing somebody and being like, that kid's going to make it one day. And I remember when they started. It's like your favorite band that you saw in front of 10 people in a club one night that's playing in a sold out arena. That stuff's fun.
Yeah, it really is. And you got some stars of the future on the fight card on Saturday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you follow this on UFC Fight Pass this weekend. CFFC 145 from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in New Jersey. John, thank you so much for sparing time in what is going to be a mad week for you. I think I've caught you just before the chaos kicks off.
Yes, you have. I'm taking the red eye out tonight, head out to Atlantic City, and I'm looking forward to it. Always appreciate chatting with you. But yeah, it's fun, man. It's I never saw this position being where my career would ultimately go, but I'm having a blast with it, man. I absolutely love where it's ended up, and man, love the team that we have at CFFC, and love the opportunities I'm getting over there. So yeah, tune in to watch the fights, man. It's you won't regret it. I promise. We'll put on some action. We always do.
It'll be a good one. Right, before we wrap things up, give us a follow on the socials at Simon Head Sport across all social platforms, at RDX Sports on X. Was going to call it Twitter then, but you call it Twitter if you like.
Still
Twitter or X, at RDX Sports, at RDX_sports on Instagram. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on this here YouTube video so you never miss an episode of the RDX Sports podcast. John, where can they find you and how can they find out more about CFFC?
Yeah, John Morgan _MMA on Twitter, John Morgan MMA at IG if you want to follow over there. But really follow the CFFC brands, man, at CFFC MMA. We'll keep you up to date there. CFFC.tv for all the information, tickets, listings, news items, all that good stuff there. So definitely check it out. Again, we got a lot of fun stuff going on, man. We got, we talked about the UFC performances. We got some more Contender Series. I think there's 11 total vets from Contender Series, and including 2 current champs. Anthony Garasio is coming up. Looking forward to seeing him out there as well. So, I mean, there's some fun things happening in the world of CFFC. So, yeah, definitely give us a follow and come along for the ride.
Great stuff. Right, that's it for us here on the RDX Sports podcast this week. Thanks again to John for dropping in for a chat for a huge event for him, CFFC 145 this weekend. Check that out on UFC Fight Pass. Enjoy the fights this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll speak to you next week.